Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you very much for your attendance today to this community conversation. I think most of you will probably know it was an initiative that's been running for a while and has had to go on to virtual, as we now see it, because of COVID. And it seems to be very successful. I think this is the second one in this ward, if I'm correct. And this one will specifically will be about community safety. So I would like to introduce myself for those people who don't know me. My name is Sue Howes. I'm chair of Etna Community Centre. And for those of you, which actually covers both these wards, as does this session, for those of you who haven't been lately, of course, we've had quite a lot of changes taking place there. And the latest development is we have a new kitchen, which we're very proud of. And it's come into its own during this particular time because the junk food cafe is now operating at Etna 3 times a week and is feeding a lot of hungry people. We can regularly get 60 or 70 so-called covers coming through the doors. So if you haven't been, please do go and check out what's happening. I would like to put in a plea, of course, for our next project, which is the sensory garden. We've taken over the whole frontage of Etna, and we are hoping to plant attractive seating areas and plants that attract bees, wildlife, etc., so that it's a communal space for anybody in the area. So I hope that anybody who wants information, we are actually having to fundraise for it. This wouldn't have been the case were it not for COVID, because we obviously were struggling to get our income levels up, like everybody. But we have the latest initiative is a local photographer has made a montage pictures of Twickenham. And these are now on sale for, her name is Emma, Emma Holtz. The information will be given later. But they are on sale for £100 for print or £135 for a framed picture. And 30% of that goes towards the Etna Sensory Garden. So, okay, that's my little bit of advertising. I would like to mention that well, I've actually written her name down here. It's Emma Durnford. So that's good. I've remembered that. I would like to introduce the panel for this evening. We have 5 ward councillors, 2 people representing the police, somebody representing the safer neighbourhood area, and Susan Chappell, I think you're representing the police liaison group. I wonder, I would like to, perhaps before the panel starts, I would like to give you the ground rules for the evening. I think everybody knows this is going to be recorded and therefore will be on the website later. So if you don't want your face to be shown, don't put your video on at any time. Etiquette, please be polite. It's a non-political gathering of people, local people, hoping to sort out some of the issues that we all face in the area, and we hope that we can be polite in our exchanges. All the links will be kept for us and will be disseminated later by one, as I think Gareth calls them, the back shelf elves or something, because they will be the people who will be gathering all these links, so you do not need to take notes at this stage. The format. We're going to have, first of all, we're going to have presentations from the people I've mentioned. Then we will go, hopefully, quickly to question and answer. What we're asking people to do is to use the chat function to raise a question. What we would like you to do is put Q or question in the chat, but then instead of just leaving it like that, which is what we did last time, to put 1 word or 2 words to signify what you would like to be discussing. I mean, it could be youth crime or something of that nature. If that's the situation, then we can hopefully bundle them together and you will get a chance to have your say. When you have put a question, as the host, I will call upon you to speak. The backroom people will unmute you. You can have your say. It is quite nice if you wouldn't mind putting your video on at the time so that we can actually see who we're speaking to. But that's entirely up to you. During that conversation, if somebody else wants to join in, you can use the raise hand function, and hopefully we will be able to draw you into the conversation equally by doing the same thing. I think that's probably everything. So I think, are we ready to start with the award update, which I believe is Councillor Acton will be talking for St Margaret's and North Twickenham.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sue, for the introduction, and good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm going to do just a brief update for you on the main things that have been happening in the ward. First thing we've got to talk about quickly, obviously, is this is a very strange year, of course, and a very challenging year because of what's been happening with COVID. And one of the things we've all found, I'm sure, in the other wards as well, the amazing community spirit that we've had, particularly in the early part of when all this pandemic really got a grip. And we've seen some tremendous work going on from friends, neighbours, groups and food collections, and using WhatsApp's group, looking out for people in many ways. I mean, the council's done a lot, but in the individual areas, it's been very impressive to see people coming together, helping each other out. And where I live, for example, we've all got you know, our own contacts for specific people. So if anybody's had a problem, we've been able to help them out, and we're continuing with that. And what looks like going to be a bit of a tricky winter, shall we say, then it's going to be even more important to carry that on. So I hope that we can. The other things that we've been working on since the last meeting, the big things like Twickenham Station. I mean, Twickenham Station's obviously on the frontage. We understand that the Marks and Spencers will be open there, and that Sainsbury's, which has been fitted out at the moment, will be open on the 21st of January. And the final block is now starting, and that's going to take about a year to happen. Also, St Margaret's Station, we've been working there with, Alex is not here, but he's been leading on that project of getting the side gate finally fitted and the new ticket hall, and that's making it a better place to go through, and there's still work to be done there. Sticking with that area, we've also Moormead Pavilion, which I know one or two people may be interested in asking about, but we've been supporting the community group there, and we're now finally getting to the stage where a planning application is going to be going in, I understand, next month, which we are supporting as well, to try and get that project moving forwards, and getting a new, what we hope will be a very, very big addition to the community around there. The college, Richmond College has finally opened on Chertsey Road. The school's been open a while, and there's a lot of work still to go on there, but it is actually now functioning. We're pleased to see that there's been a school streets control of the kids getting in and out, which has been an issue in that area. That's now operational. And the other news there's the housing we hope will start for next year for the affordable and, well, a mixture of housing on the back of the site. Rugby, I think you're all aware, that's in our ward, of course. There was talk of big matches, 25,000 people. That's now not been allowed by the government. So I'm not quite clear whether they're going to have behind closed doors or what their plans exactly are. But they are obviously then financial problems there. People are being made redundant. So there is a need to try and find some way of them doing some activities which can raise some money. So we're looking out for that. The other things, briefly, supporting local businesses. I've been particularly active in that, in going around and working with the other council officers and the other colleagues, members, trying to support the businesses over this last 6 months, making sure that the business rate rebates, all the grants, etc., have been paid. We've been leading on that in this borough. We've done very well with the business grants and the rate rebates and the rate holidays, and also with other further discretionary loans, discretionary grants and loans as well. So we are hoping that we will see most businesses who are not open reopen soon. And then there's community safety, which we're going to talk about now. So I think I'll leave it there, Sue, and I think I've got 5 minutes, so you can move on to Julia now if you wish.
Okay. Before I move on to Julia, I'm aware that I didn't make it clear that Ben Khosa, Councillor Khosa, is also here. Could you just give us a wave, Ben? So, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to Twickenham Riverside Ward, and Julia is going to speak on behalf of that and give us an update. Oh, sorry, the Neden-Watts.
Thank you. Yes, so just a broad brush overview of some of the major things that are going on in the ward. I know we're going to move on to community safety, so this is much more about the things that, despite COVID really, progress has been made on some major features of the ward. Twickenham Riverside development, the site of the derelict baths. We have our Hopkins architects, well-regarded architects, who were chosen following a drawing up of a brief and the REBA competition, and their designs, they've taken them to the stakeholders group and met with councillors. Those designs now accommodate the Environment Agency's requirements regarding flooding on that site. They're going to be filled out with more detail, more features, more design elements, and then that will be put to public consultation. So we look forward to engaging with the public on those latest designs. Also, work has progressed well despite COVID, I think it's fair to say, at Marble Hill, which was another major planning application a couple of years ago. The cafe is now expecting to open in spring, which is something to look forward to. The kitchen garden, they're making plans for their next planting season. I think the idea is that Kitchen Garden will supply the cafe at Marble Hill, so that's going to be rather lovely. The house is being renovated and brought back to life. We've seen sketches and designs of what it's going to look like in the rooms. Again, I think that's going to be lovely and something to look forward to, and I think we need those things to look forward to at the moment. The sports pitches, unfortunately, there's reduced access because the sports pitches have been fenced off, but I think this is for the longer term benefit of the parkland, and hopefully, you know, we can all bear with that with patience, and then the sports pitches will be in a much better condition for usage in the future. What else have we got? The Little Deer Park site, another major development in our area. They've also progressed there. There have been lots of delays. It's been hard work. It's had a big impact on the community. But the crane is now off site. I think these dates may be subject to change still. But I think the school is going to open in January and the store in February. There have been a lot of discussions with the local community. We've had a liaison group set up to discuss some of them with councillors and various representatives from the local community. And I think it's been quite constructive to work through some of the problematic issues that have arisen there. There's lots of interest around the general streetscape in East Twickenham in particular. And again, I think we're looking at setting up a liaison group for that because the model has worked quite well in terms of engaging with experienced people in the community, with officers and with us as councillors. And I think that's a good way to take these ideas forward. So we're going to do that with the wider street scene ideas that we've had. We've had so many meetings on Zoom. It works really well. It brings us together. But I have to say, one of my highlights recently was getting together with Councillor Chard and Councillor Crouch, and indeed Councillor Roberts deigned to join us on a litter pick around York House Gardens, pulling the vodka bottles out of the hedges, and generally keeping an eye on things. We got quite a few bags of rubbish, and it was nice to be out together, 2 metres apart, obviously. We noticed the naked ladies are looking a bit the worse for wear, and I'm pleased to say that officers are scheduling some works to repair the statues. They need experts, you know, professionals. They wouldn't let the councillors have a go at mending the statues, so that's being scheduled by officers. And Church Street pedestrianisation, that's another thing where we're going to go back to the community to ask views on how that has been. The idea, obviously, in pedestrianising was to allow more space for tables and social distancing to try and support the businesses and allow the community to move around safely. But we need to have a look, it's time to have a review on that. And so that will be a consultation as well. And Jess mentioned the business development and how we're trying to support the community. The licensing officers as well have been out talking to businesses about how they can implement strategies to deal with social distancing and try and keep their businesses going. So we're aware of the challenges. It's perhaps a time to take stock in some ways. We've got lots of reviews and consultations. So maybe a time to think of the opportunities as well as the challenges, although obviously there are plenty of those challenges as well. I'll leave it there because I think we want to move on to others and hear your questions, but thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you very much. Can we just also introduce Councillor Chard? Could you give us a wave, please? And Councillor Crouch, just so that everybody knows that who is here this evening. I think we're going to move on. According to me, we're going to be asking Susan Chappell to talk about what's going on. There should have been 2 representatives, but I think there's only one, Susan, and I think you're Twickenham Riverside, yeah, aren't you? And you will be talking about the police liaison group of this area.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I've been involved in the Twickenham Riverside PLG, Police Liaison Group, for about 10 years, just over 10 years, and I've been its chair for about 18 months. I'd like to start by thanking Riverside's SNT team, Carla, Chloe and Steve, and all of their colleagues for everything they've done during what's been a really difficult time for everybody to keep the ward safe. And I'd also like to mention and thank Pam McMillan, who's the PLG secretary, I think, for other wards as well as mine. And she ensures that all the meetings take place. She produces the minutes, she coordinates us, she makes sure that we give out all the information that we should do, and just generally does an amazing job. So I'd like to thank her very much. I'm not sure if she's on this call today or not. We haven't been able to hold face-to-face meetings since March, but what we have done is we've continued to engage with everyone who's registered. We've received a number of emails from residents about various concerns they've got, covers a whole range of things, many of which I'm sure will come up during the course of the evening. But just to give you a couple of examples about the sort of things that have come into us. We had a resident in Amiens Park Road who was concerned about the noise from the shack. We passed this on to the SNT, and they're going to be, as a result of that, increasing the patrols in this area, sort of monitoring the situation and making sure that things are as good as they can be. I should also thank Roger Crouch, Councillor Crouch, as well, because he's been following up on planning and licensing issues in this regard, which is obviously something that we're very pleased about. It's a situation that's ongoing and one that the police are helping us to monitor. One of the positive things possibly about the changes in legislation is that their hours won't be quite as long. So possibly that will help to alleviate some of the later night annoyances. But that's been an example, I think, of where the PLG has worked very well with both councillors and the SNT to make sure that things get done as quickly and efficiently as possible when we just haven't been able to have that face-to-face meeting. Recently, literally a couple of weeks ago, I've been approached by someone who was concerned about the lack of social distancing of people using the bridge over the railway tracks as it leads into Beecham Road. And again, I'm pleased to say that the SNT, as a result of me contacting them, are going to be doing some additional patrols just to make sure. This again is one of those things, it's a balance. We want people to use the bridge, we want people to walk, we want people to cycle, but we just want to maintain that social distance and make sure that everyone feels safe. So I've been really pleased that during what's been a really difficult time, residents still have contacted Pam and me with some issues that they've got, and we've been able to pass those on to the SNT. We've also had new residents wanting to be included on the PLG mailing list, which is fantastic. They've been added, and that means that we get more and more people having the opportunity to be involved, to get the minutes, to see what's going on in the local area. And just finally, just to let everybody know, we're planning a Zoom meeting for December. And for as long after that as we need to, basically, so that we make sure that we do maintain those quarterly meetings. We thought initially, like everyone, this would be something relatively limited in its scope, but it looks to me now as if it's going to be going on for at least another 3, 4, maybe longer. So we will be doing those, but what we really, really want to do is get back to the amazing, wonderful Etna, where we hold our meetings. And I should thank Etna at this point for being very generous in letting us use their rooms. so that again we can bring the community together. So finally, thank you very much to everyone who's been involved. Thank you to the councillors and to the SNT and to everybody in the PLG in Twickenham Riverside for making it such a vibrant and well-used group. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you for the comments about Etna. So we do hope that
Slightly biased, I have to say, slightly biased.
we won't mention who's on the board. But I would say that we at Etna do actively encourage all local groups to try and meet there, because it is your centre, and that's where we're coming from. Okay, shall we move on to, you kept saying SNT, which I presume means Safer Neighbourhood Team. We have Peter Burrows-Smith, who's going to speak from the Safer Neighbourhood Board, which I understand is the umbrella for the police liaison groups. Is that correct?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name. So I'm just down as Peter. I'm Peter Burrows-Smith. I am one of the joint chairs of the Safer Neighbourhood Board, which is the borough-wide umbrella organisation covering all the PLGs. I'm just really sitting in tonight. Unfortunately, the local PLG chair for North Twickenham and St Margaret's cannot join you. I have to confess, I'm not familiar with the immediate local things, and I did ask, I don't know whether Cllr Ben Khosa could maybe just say something on behalf of the local PLG. Is that possible, Ben?
Yeah, basically I think the issues are similar. We're fairly well covered by Neighbourhood Watch coordinators, but we would obviously like some more. So if anybody's interested in taking that post up, please put yourself forward. We have 2 dog watches in the ward. The one in Craneford Way area, we're looking for a bit of more support from someone local. Dog watches are sort of similar to the Neighbourhood Watch coordinators' roles. You know, the dog walkers go the same route, walk their dogs regularly, and may perhaps notice something out of place and they just report it. It's not very onerous. Other than that, I think June PLG was cancelled, and we too invited questions by email. I'll leave the rest of it to PC Gemma Holcroft if she wants to add anything, but generally speaking, we are of course live in a very safe area, particularly compared to other boroughs, and compared to years gone by. We are living, although this is a very strange time, but crime-wise, I think certainly serious crime-wise, we are living in a relatively safe place. So thank you. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Peter. Could I, we have 2 representatives from the police. Do you like to speak first, Inspector Robinson?
Yeah, hello everybody. So for those of you that I haven't managed to meet, which is probably virtually all of you, I started at the same time COVID hit, unfortunately for me. I'm the neighbourhood inspector for Richmond Borough, so I have responsibility for all the 18 neighbour teams across of Richmond, including the wards mentioned here today. So I'll keep this really brief because I want to give you as much chance as possible to ask questions, and these are really good for me just in terms of hearing what's going on and what your local concerns are. So just briefly, sort of the picture across Richmond, at the minute you're probably aware, but we have seen, along with the rest of London, an increase in crime post-COVID. That's petered off a bit in August, but we have seen that increase. That's happened all across London. Richmond does still remain one of the safest boroughs in London. However, that doesn't mean that you should get any less of a service. I'm quite passionate about making sure that we do get those resources into Richmond. We now operate, as you may be aware, in the police under an umbrella of South West. So we're partnered with Wandsworth, Merton and Kingston. but I see it very much as my job to make sure that we get the resources where we need to in those priority areas around the borough. So I'll hand over to Gemma in a minute, just to give you a local picture. Just to touch on a couple of things that I think Geoff mentioned earlier, the rugby. So I've been in meetings earlier with the RFU. They are planning to do some closed door games. They've been very, very rigorous, and I have to say that their plans are really impressive in terms of how they're going to be screening people, the numbers they're going to be allowed in, very minimal, and they're kind of working really hard to sort of keep that business going. So we will be working with our licensing teams around the Twickenham area. In the whole, in terms of the COVID picture, the angle from the police is very much in terms of engagement. So officers will challenge people not wearing masks. We have some extra resources provided by response teams to answer calls of concerns to groups more than 6. But we will always engage before we seek to give out tickets, because there could be reasons that people aren't wearing masks. And obviously we're still trying to continue with our day-to-day business and the running of Richmond, but I think I've gone on long enough. If I could just bring in Gemma just to give you a bit of a local picture, and then we can open up for questions if that's okay. Gemma?
Thank you.
Hello, so I'm Gemma Holcroft and I'm the DWO for North Richmond and St Margarets. We're working as a cluster at the moment, so we work closely with Whitton and also Twickenham Riverside as well. So each ward's got 2 DWOs and 1 BCSO, but we do tend to work as a big mob of us really, and we try to tackle issues on each ward. We're trying to bring back the contact points at the moment. I understand Riverside have been doing theirs down by the embankment. St Margaret's, we've been doing ours in Mormie Park as well, trying to adhere to the social distancing. And we are trying to bring back we're doing virtual PLGs at the moment as well. I know in St Margaret's we've been asking people to email questions, and we're trying to address it that way as well. Yeah, like I said, we're all trying to work together at the moment. It's a big cluster. Riverside executed a warrant, which we all did together the other day. Yeah, and I think that's about it, really.
Yeah,
That's fine. Thank you, Gemma, and thank you both. I think we are ready to move on to the questions, which I think is a little bit early. But the first question we have, and I think you will be aware of it in the back, is question from, before Stephen Lloyd, I think, Mac, could you identify yourself, please? And we can unmute you. I mean, Mac, question e-scooters and question match days in Twickenham, which I think we've partly already talked.
Hello, and thank you.
Can you?
Yes, on e-scooters, this is really a question for Inspector Robinson, I think. I run the Heatham Alliance community group, which covers most of Twickenham, and I had an email recently from one of our members expressing her concerns about the dangers posed to pedestrians by e-scooters. Just to be clear, it's illegal to ride e-scooters on public roads and footpaths and cycle lanes at any time anywhere in Richmond Borough. But last week I saw a rider weaving his e-scooter along the road through traffic and passing straight through red traffic lights. And last night I saw an e-scooter travelling at nearly 20 miles an hour with just a tiny red rear light and ignoring the traffic lights as well.
Yeah.
Please could the police advise what can be done to reinforce the message?
So, sorry, go on, I'm so excited to answer.
To reinforce the message that riding e-scooters on public roads and footpaths in Richmond and its neighbouring boroughs is illegal and dangerous, and that steps will be taken to penalise people who ride them illegally.
Yeah, so this came up in a conversation I was having last week. So the corporate message from the MPS is that we will support this initiative from the government. So, which therefore obviously does kind of make it difficult in terms of putting out specific messages. However, I would say obviously they are mechanically propelled vehicles, so there is legislation around that in which we can deal with them. As you said, you know, sort of riding them dangerously. So I would always encourage, although unfortunately we can't come out and speak about the dangers of these for sort of the political reasons, I would encourage you to obviously report any such instance through to your Safer Neighbourhood team in the same way you would any other sort of dangerously driven mechanically propelled vehicle. Sorry, I know that sounds like a bit of a...
Would any of the ward councillors like to comment? Which ward are you, Mac?
I'm in North Twickenham.
North Twickenham.
Margarets.
Councillor Acton? Councillor Khosa?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mac. I witnessed them myself. But we don't really have any information to hand, I think. But I think there were some boroughs trialling it, trialling them officially. So I don't know what their results are or what they've concluded, if they've concluded, but we can try and find out.
Could I just interject there? Because actually e-scooters are meant to be kept below 15 miles an hour, but I saw this one doing 20. As electrically powered vehicles, as the inspector said, they require tax and MOT, third-party insurance, license plates and lights, but they have none of these things. So they really are quite a danger. And in respect to Ben Khosa's remark, there are some trials going on, but none of them are in any London boroughs.
Does anybody know anything else about these scooters that they would like to contribute?
I was just going to say, we're actually getting a couple of newbies next month to train up. So we were actually going to set up an operation in regards to the e-scooters. So by having a few extra numbers, that's going to help put a little operation together and try and target them.
Okay, thank you. We do have two questions from Mac. The other one was about match day in Twickenham. I would normally say we'll go to another question, but we don't seem to have a lot of questions in the chat box at the moment. So what was your question about match days?
I apologise for having a second question in there, Chair.
No worries, carry on.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a question for the council. And just a bit of background, last month Harlequins hosted a test event for up to 3,000 rugby spectators at the Stoop. And I requested the council to widen the narrow footpath over the bridge between the Cabbage Patch and Brewery Wharf to allow social distancing, especially bearing in mind that many of the visiting fans would have been drinking since lunchtime. And members of the local community really need to be confident of walking safely between their homes and the town centre. Will the council give a definite written assurance that in future, during the current season, when crowds are allowed back at the Stoop and the RFU Stadium, one lane of the road will be closed to widen this section of the footpath and allow social distancing between footpath users? Thank you.
Would you like to answer that, Councillor Khosa?
Yeah, I did forward Mac's concern. However, I think we're some way away from the next matches when we will need this. I think the leader, Councillor Roberts, is in the audience. I don't know if he can add anything, but your concern has been forwarded, it has been registered, and we will, I'm sure, look at it when the time comes.
Is that acceptable? There's an answer.
I've been waiting for over a month for any response at all from the council on this. And I think it's a serious matter. I brought it up before the match, and I didn't have a proper response at all from it. I really think that it's an important aspect, social distancing, especially where at that particular match it was forecast there'd be about 1,000 fans crossing over that bridge before the match and again after. All of them pretty well oiled, I should think. And with other matches, there's going to be even more.
I think we all agree with you. Did you want to have a final say on the matter, Councillor Khosa?
I just want to say that I do remember having at least one conversation with Mark, and I do share his concern. I think it's a very valid concern, and if rugby fans, especially when they've had something to drink, they do need a proper segregation.
I've been asked to remind people that if you want to message councillors directly, you need to select their name in the chat drop box. So we're going to go instead. We will come back to Stephen Lloyd, and Rob Gray, because they're both specific to Ben. But for this moment, we will move on to Austin Banger, who wants to has a question about social distancing. Can you make yourself known, please?
Yes, I'm actually Tina. I just used my husband's account.
Tina.
So I've got a question about social distancing. We go for walks quite often, and obviously the footpaths are never that wide. Quite often there are couples who come from the opposite, so the footpath is not really wide enough for a couple next to each other, and then we normally walk behind each other. And we were wondering whether it's possible to put something into place where people become a bit more aware of that we could walk behind each other. I don't know, like whether you could make posters to hang up, or so people in the borough just generally become more aware of that we all need to be a bit more considerate, and maybe sometimes the only way how to keep distance is walking behind each other when we see somebody coming from the opposite. And I think people keep forgetting. And I was wondering whether it's possible.
Who would like to answer, Tina? Which ward is it, Tina?
I'm in St Margaret's.
St Margaret's. So, Councillor Acton, have you gone off for I think it's back to you then, Councillor Khosa.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There are people who are not following the guidelines. We're going into a very, what I think may be a very serious situation, and we do need to educate and send the message out that all possible precautions and the government guidelines have to be followed. That's the only way we're going to have a fighting chance, because as I said, I think we are going into a serious situation, and we need to further this message that people must follow the government guidelines.
Yes, Councillor Neden-Watts.
Yeah, I recognise the issue. When I'm out walking myself, I try and be aware of who's coming towards me or how wide the space is, and from time to time we all forget. But I think it's perhaps about finding imaginative ways to engage with each other as a community or as a society, to remind each other of the correct way to be considerate towards each other, as much as it is about enforcement. I know that in some areas we do have signage up, and we had a discussion about this at a community meeting last night actually, and there was as you know, Sue, there was a range of views on whether signage is helpful, or do people ignore it, how big does the signage need to be, and do you just get blasé about seeing signage. It's a tricky one, and it comes down to consideration and respect for other people's space, and perhaps through schools or through our own families and just talking to each other, we can raise that profile of giving each other space. But it's a tricky one. I don't think there's a straightforward answer.
But maybe that's the message that you need to put across, not get on that side of the road, but be respectful of other people's space, and it would be nice if. And sometimes that message would speak to people in our ward more than being told what to do, really. So, Tina, are you happy? Do you want to come back?
Yes, I had this idea whether it's possible to make like something which is called the new polite way. So people feel a bit more like, oh, the new polite is actually, yes, we keep the distance. So it's not just enforcement, you have to, but maybe actually, because Richmond is such a polite borough and people are generally considerate. And I was just thinking whether something that's a bit more empowering, people feel like they take initiative in behaving this new polite way, rather like than always say, you are not allowed to do this, you are not allowed to do this, but maybe just perhaps to change the wording slightly.
Yeah, perhaps, you could be in touch with the community engagement team, where perhaps Siobhan representing them, because actually it's ideas like that we need to be working on and putting forward, because we do want the borough to remain a polite, attentive borough. I'm going to move on now to Joanna Spack, and your question was about my Bobby letters sent to residents.
I can answer this.
Yes. Would you want to ask your question first, Joanna? Are we there?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. It would be nice if we could see you. It's up to you.
I'm not set up for that, but I'll try to put my camera a bit later. Just one question. Thanks for taking my question, Sue. So we touched on this at the one of the meetings for East Twickenham yesterday. Today, residents in our area received letters from my local bobby, presenting basically security services, and we've set up quite a good network of WhatsApp groups in the area, and there was a big uproar, a big reaction from residents around this, saying that the letters were scaremongering, that it was obviously not appropriate to send that type of letters, etc. So one thing is I wanted to share that feedback, and then second, my question is, what's the background for these type of letters? And I'm keen to hear from the police on what their recommendation is in regards to that.
I think Inspector Robinson was about to answer.
Yes, so I'm sort of very familiar of my local bobby and how it's come about. I've actually got a statement that I'll be putting out probably on Nextdoor, just that's been signed off by ourselves, the council and the SMB board, just around my local bobby, because I am aware that we've had a number, both myself and the councils, the community safety unit at the council have had a number of concerns from residents, pretty much detailing just exactly what you've said there around the sort of nature of these letters. I have seen the letter. I know that it claims to have been sent following engagement with ourselves and the council, and I know that it is very misleading. So both myself and the council and Councillor Roberts have spoken to my local bobby, and that was purely just to sort of gain an understanding of what their plans were, what the operations were. I'm sure you're all aware of the incident in Richmond Green, whereby a member of private security actually got arrested, causing police to be taken off the street while they were dealing with it. So that's sort of as far as our engagement with them has gone. We don't endorse such schemes. We can't, if residents would like to sort of sign up to private security service, that's kind of not really for the police to say whether you should or shouldn't do that, but we would just ask that the public that you're satisfied it's going to get the service that you want. But these companies are definitely not endorsed by police or council or the Safe Neighbourhood Board.
Thanks for confirming that, because it's very misleading the way it's phrased in the letters, and that's really not appropriate. And,
no,
and everyone was really panicked when they received it.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. We were going to comment on it.
I think we need a comment from the council, really, because there must be a policy Does anybody like to comment?
Roger's trying to get in, but his
Councillor
Roger,
Neden-Watts?
gone. No, if Roger would like to speak, I've had a go. So I think we agree, but Roger might want to phrase it his way.
And he's a lawyer.
Thank you. Again, we touched on this at our neighbourhood meeting last night, and I'm very clear that we as councillors are vehemently opposed to the fear-mongering that my local bobby are trying to stir up in the area. And we need to support our safer neighbourhood teams, and we can, through your councillors and the PLG and the WhatsApp groups you can raise with us areas that need more policing. I know the letter you received I passed on to Councillor Roberts last week, and also to our Member of Parliament, Munira Wilson. So do pass that message back via your WhatsApp groups that we don't like what my local bobby are stirring up in the area.
Okay. I think Peter Burrows Smith wanted to comment.
If I could just add briefly, as I said, I'm with the Safer Neighbourhood Board. I know Councillor Roberts and Rebecca Robinson have been working on this letter, which will be communication coming out, as Rebecca's just explained. Just to say, whilst this is my local bobby, there is also another security firm called On The Beat, which is touting for business in Barnes. So the negative comments from Rebecca and the council on this refer to all security. Treat with care. And the My Local Bobby letter is very misleading and very scary.
Yeah.
So treat with care. Thank you.
Would anybody else? Councillor Neden-Watts.
Yeah, I just wanted to put in a positive word for the council's security contractor, because we do, apart from working with the police, we do work with an organisation called Park Guard, who have full accreditation and qualifications, and the police work very closely with Park Guard, who patrol our parks, towpath, open spaces, and so you'll see those around, and they are above board, supported by the council, indeed contracted by the council, and they have a close working relationship with the police. So
yeah, absolutely.
Just wanted to make that clear, that we do appreciate their service.
Councillor Khosa? Ben, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to say is that we must remember that although we're going through a difficult period, and we've had a few flare-ups, and these sort of flare-ups have occurred all over London, if not the country. We must remember that we are in a very comparatively safe place here in Richmond, and not to be alarmed or be, excited by letters and organisations like this.
Does anybody else like to comment on this aspect of the private? Councillor Roberts, you want to comment as an overview?
Yeah, thank you, Sue. I didn't intend to speak this evening because this is for wards councillors really, but this is an issue which is giving great concern to the council as a whole. The letter which you will have received is, in my view, deliberately misleading. It suggests that that My Local Bobby has been engaged by the council. The words they use is that they have engaged with. They have not been engaged by. It's engaged with. It's a little, it's a pretty little use of language which is entirely misleading in my view. And we will be writing to them in the strongest possible terms, because we don't want private police forces working in the borough. There's no need for them. We have an excellent police service here, and we also have a very good supplementary backup system with the Park Guard, which the police work very closely with at the moment. So please don't be alarmed. It's something we're aware of, and they will be getting the full force of the council's disapproving look any day now.
Thank you very much. Can we move on? Can we move on to a question from Stephen Alexandra, please? Alexander, can you make yourself known? And
hello.
The question is about antisocial behaviour on Moormead Park.
Could I just say one of my comment on Tina's question about couples? It's nothing to do with COVID. It's been going on for years. If you're old, you're invisible. Two people walking together take precedence over everyone else. So it's got nothing to do with COVID at all, I'm afraid. thank you, Tina, for raising it anyway. Moormead Park problems are seasonal. There's no question. It dies down in the winter, and it has been particularly grim at times. We're very indebted to the Parks Patrol. We do see them. They do attend. The police attend in huge numbers when there's an incident. We get endless comments on our local WhatsApp group about drug dealing, which apparently is known to everybody. It just seems quite extraordinary. I find packets on the green occasionally, empty packets, I hasten to add, which I know are drug dealers' packets. It does seem quite remarkable that when we're told the police know who these dealers are, they know their cars, they get photographed, nothing much seems to happen. And in terms of antisocial behavior, it is difficult, particularly in time of COVID. There's an awful lot of people congregating, youths around the playground. And I'd like comments about where the police and council are going on this problem.
Okay, could we ask Inspector Robinson, please, to reply?
Yeah, so first of all, as you're probably aware, our sort of have to be realistic about numbers. Our numbers are very limited. Each ward, unfortunately, now only has just 2 constables and 1 PCSO. And over the summer, they have seen, to be honest with you, sort of heavy abstractions in terms of sort of managing COVID within the police itself. So, you know, having to staff up response teams or, you know, to go and deal with unlicensed music events. Which is as frustrating for us as it is for you, especially for the officers when they are working on these problems. I would say as well, just because it's not necessarily seen, we are sort of executing a number of warrants. There is a lot of things going on in the background. Sometimes to catch these dealers, we will put officers out in plain clothes, which unfortunately then means that we lose the visibility side of it. But it's always good to, you know, whenever this is going on, just keep reporting it into us, because the more intelligence we get, the more, you know, we can't just sort of work on one single strand of intelligence. So the more we get, the more we can build up these pictures, the more we can do the warrants, the more we can work, you know, with our tasking teams in order to do this. So please keep, I feel your frustration, but please do keep reporting it into us.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to come back to question, Stephen? Are you happy with that response, or would you like one of the councillors to refer to the question?
No, that's absolutely fine. As long as everyone is aware of it. It does seems astonishing that everyone knows who they are, but clearly I know it's a problem, and I know I'll be told it's only spliffs, but unfortunately it is more than that. So everyone's aware. That's fine.
Yes, Councillor Khosa.
Yeah, sorry to, I don't mean to hog it, but we had a meeting on Moormead Park some time ago. I think PC Holcroft was there, and I'm not sure if she can confirm this, but I do believe an arrest has been made in the locality of where Stephen's talking about for these drug offences.
No, nobody's been arrested at the moment. The issue we had, I appreciate there's a lot of WhatsApp groups and there's a lot of information being passed around on the WhatsApp groups, but a lot of the time that's not being relayed back to the police. So since we had our street briefing, I think that's about 2 or 3 months ago now, we actually haven't had any reports in relation to Moormead Park. So we were under the impression that it's completely died down, but if that's not the case, it's still not being reported back to ourselves. Like my boss, as I said, like my boss just mentioned, for us to execute warrants, we need to go off intel, so it just needs to be fed back to ourselves, really.
And please, if you could sort of pass that message out, because quite often we see things on social media, and Is actually nobody's actually reported it in through to us, and I know 101 can be frustrating. I probably shouldn't say that in a public forum, should I? But you know, if you can't get through on 101, you know, email in. We can pass out, can't we, Chappell, the safer neighbourhood email addresses for all the different wards. Gemma's just here representing one, but we can pass all of them out, and that's a good way to come straight into us.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'll pass that on.
I'm wondering if Carl Cross would like to read out his note, because it's rather lengthy, but it's obviously a propos of this, which is antisocial behaviour. Do we have Carl Cross? No? I don't know if people can see it. It's in the chat box. It's a note to Inspector Robinson and PC Holcroft saying that over summer, Holly Road and Grosvenor Street were often like a war zone late in the evening, most nights with fights and drunken behaviour. So to the point, Facebook pages have even been set up out of frustration and concern. Very disturbing violence by and to both men and women, but I have to say, since the police station reopened, university went back, and the 10 p.m. curfew, it's improved enormously. So thank you. So I'm sorry he's not there to say that himself.
Yeah,
I am there,
just
sorry.
on that point.
Sorry, Sue, I am there. Multiple devices.
Oh.
But yeah, just wanted to say it's improved significantly, and strangely it seemed to be Sunday, Monday and Tuesday nights were the worst, but it does seem to have improved, and I'm pleased to say that for a while it felt quite scary and the neighbours agreed, but it's a lot better now. So thanks to the police.
And I think you have highlighted the reasons for it, and I think again that's something that we hope the police and councillors will take on board, that you know, having a police station back open does make a difference in an area. So.
Absolutely, and just the street patrols we've seen in the last few weeks have really made, certainly I know a lot of our neighbours and us feel a lot safer, so thank you.
Oh, good. That's good to know, because we've also got moved into Twickenham, our probation and development unit. So they are sort of our brand new officers. So it's kind of quite good that we've been able to make room for them, and they'll be coming out with the dedicated ward officers as well, just to sort of try and increase our presence. So yeah, hopefully you'll see that.
Fantastic. Thanks again.
Are there any more questions on antisocial behaviour before we move on to Mark Hola? Could you ask your question, please, Mark? I don't know, we don't need the whole question written in the text. It's better just to highlight what it's about. I think yours is about the 20 mile per hour.
It is. Hi there. Hi. Thank you. It's Hauler, and well done for getting it right. So a concern that I've raised is that I live on London Road. The part of the road that it is you come out of the train station, which is where London Road is, Twickenham train station. You turn right. Don't go up towards the rugby stadium. Turn right again at the traffic lights. So it's that section of the road there. And it's a free-for-all with the cars. There is, from the traffic lights, there is rapid acceleration, and there is rapid deceleration coming the other way from the A316 roundabout back towards the traffic lights. I think I'm a reasonable judge of speed. I'm a driver myself, and I would say that speeds are often in excess of 40 miles per hour on that stretch. There is no signage as you turn into the road off the train station part of the road. There is no signage there. There is actually one small sign that says something about this is a 20 mile per hour, but it's not angled correctly at all. And there are no, there is no reason really for anybody to slow down on that stretch. It's a lovely wide stretch of road. You can see a really long run straight forward to a bend that's in the distance, and people accelerate, and it's really fast. The problem that I've got is I have two young boys and a wife. There are a lot of properties. We all go to St Mary's School. It's supposed to be a 20 mile per hour zone. A 20 mile per hour limit, and it is not being enforced in any way whatsoever. I raised this with the I think it was with the council a number of months ago, and I was passed on to a team which I think is a 20-mile-per-hour enforcement team or something. I can't remember. I didn't want to pull up the email just now, but that email train has gone absolutely silent. There were 2 or 3 people copied on that email. I've had nothing back since. The last was, would I like to help with neighbourhood speed camera work, and I said absolutely no problem, I'll do that. I'll enlist the help of my neighbours, but I will only do that when it is clear to me and other drivers that it is indeed a 20-mile-per-hour zone. Because, sorry, I'm using the wrong word, it isn't a zone. That's my second point. You just have no idea that it's 20 mile per hour. My second point here, if I can just get it across quickly, is that I did a little bit of research, and my understanding, but I'm really new to this, is ROSPA did some research, and that it should be a zone if the speed is beyond 30 mile per hour, and it should be signage with regular signage if the average speed is something like 25 or 26 mile per hour or less. I don't know why someone has chosen a road that is clearly an exceeding 30 mile per hour, is not classed as a zone, and doesn't have the zonage in terms of the way that you can slow a road down and narrow and all sorts of things, and there isn't even sufficient signage.
Okay, Mark, I think your question is directed at the local councillors.
Sure,
so I think we'll ask Councillor Acton. Would you like to comment on why there's not sufficient signage in that area?
Yeah, it's something we've looked into. My experience is a bit the same as what Mark's saying. You know, I walk up there and drive up there from quite a lot, and we've taken it up with our colleague, you know, Councillor Eamon, who's the transport lead, and we've taken the points that you've raised about the team about enforcement and the signage as well, because it isn't clear. I agree, and it's something obviously we need to pursue more then, because it's not clear when you come out of the station. I've noticed that some people are keeping to the limit, because you can actually see that, and people bunching a bit behind them, but it's not everybody, you're right, and it's because it's got a good sight lines from both ends, you will get that. So we have taken it up. We need to do more on the signage, I would agree. I'm not sure whether the actual enforcement is a police matter, which Rebecca might like to comment on, or whether I don't think we can do that. I mean, Councillor Roberts is here as well. I don't think we do that. I think the police do that, do they not?
It does
right?
make it hard. It makes it hard for the police to enforce it if the signage isn't really.
Yes.
Would you like to comment, Rebecca?
Yeah, we'll have to. I may have to come back with you on that, because I know sort of I've just moved over from Wandsworth, and I know the 20 mile. I'll have to check with my traffic colleagues in Teddington, because I know there was some sort of issue around enforcement of the 20 mile per hour speed zone. But I can check with our safer transport colleagues and come back to you on that one. So I don't know the traffic.
Some people have been fined for excessive speeds. We're not on
okay.
London Road as far as I know, but some people have around the borough. So it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did Lewin want to come in? You also raised a point in connection. Is Lewin there? No?
Hi, yes, I am here. Hi, yes. Yeah, just wanted to second Mark's point. I mean, I live in London Road as well, and basically everything you just said is my experience as well. And you know, you mentioned around the school kids. I've also got children to worry about. There's no pedestrian crossing as far as I'm concerned, you know, in this stretch of road, clean line of sight. So I can clearly see people taking a chance and hopping across the road, and you know, if someone is speeding at 40 miles an hour around that bend, they won't see them coming. So it's really a genuine concern.
It's confirmed. So can we, yes, Councillor Khosa? Ben?
I think, is it not within the police's remit to do a speed test there?
Yeah, I know our transport colleagues do sort of speed watch, and indeed I think they invite members of the community to that, but again I'd have to double check with them.
if I can just say, I was invited to do the speed
Okay.
watch, but I said, look, I'll gladly, as I said before, I'd gladly do that once it is clear what the speed limit should be there. I've got a nice car that's pretty new, and it's got a really good sat nav system that tells me the speed limit in the area on the particular road. I'm afraid to say that throughout the borough, I have to often, very often, on any stretch of road throughout the borough, look at the sat nav to tell me what the speed is, because I don't know whether it's 30 or 20 or something else. And it seems such a shame that I'm having to do that and there isn't regular signage. So I think Councillor Roberts wants to speak.
Councillor Roberts?
Yeah, hello. Sorry, me again. Itmar, that's me. The reason there are 30-mile-an-hour places where there are 30-mile-an-hour roads, and there are very few in the borough. The entire borough is covered by a borough-wide 20-mile-an-hour zone. So unless you're driving along and see a 30 sign, it's 20. That's the rule of thumb. I think it's the A308 down through Hampton. It's the stretch of the Staines Road going up towards the McDonald's. It's the Kingston Road going between Teddington and Kingston, and I think possibly Barter Cross Deep, but don't quote me on that. But it's that sort of area. Is the rule of thumb? If in doubt, it's 20, but you only see a 30 sign when it's a 30 limit, and they are few and far between. And on the community speed watch things, I understand that we want to get those back up and running as soon as possible, but unfortunately, coronavirus and COVID has rather got in the way. People are taking a dim view of people huddling around a speed camera at the moment for obvious reasons.
But Martin, we'll take up the signage issues for you, though. But I agree with those.
Absolutely.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if London Road isn't safe, then your ward councillors want to know about it, and they will happily meet you on site. And I will speak for them here.
Yeah,
they will happily join you, and you can point out directly to them.
Yeah, sure.
That's
Absolutely.
great. Thank you.
All right, then that's minuted, I hope. We have a question from Neil Summers, but he hasn't identified what it's about. Is Neil Summers there? Still, it just says question. Does anybody know Neil Summers? No?
Further up in the thread, he was mentioning that he's got a grot spot, which is the Twickenham Bridge steps and Riverside area, and graffiti on the railway. If we can't contact him here, if he's not able to speak at the moment, if he could drop us an email as ward councillors, identify the particular locations, and we can follow that up either at the council level, or for some of that railway graffiti, it'll be a Network Rail thing, but we've got contacts we can follow it up with. So yeah, if he's not able to speak now, then maybe we can pick that up with him offline.
So we think it's a question about graffiti.
I think so from the thread further up, but unless he can correct that and he's able to speak, we won't know.
Hi Sue, this is Ellie from the back office. Just to say that Mr. Summers is unmuted, so he is able to speak. And so,
he's left the room.
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We don't seem to have any other pressing questions. Suzie Chappell, you wanted to point out that Crossdeep is 30 miles per hour, even though there are 2 schools and a park. And obviously, I think your point would be that it should be 20. Susan? Yeah. So you can be unmuted.
Yes, absolutely. It should be 20 miles an hour. And it's something that I've been raising for a long, long time with, I'm afraid, little action.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions? And have we covered enough this evening? I'm looking for Neil Summers. He is there.
No, there's a new question from Austin Banger. Or
Yes.
Tina, is it again?
Tina, it's Tina.
Yes, it's Tina again. I just wondered, I recently had a very good help from the police, but I was waiting a long time for a follow-up to see whether things have been concluded, and I was wondering just generally if people in the borough come with things they report which have been a bit worse than normal, whether there's always at the end when the investigation finished, whether there's always a reply to the person. I just wonder whether if people bring up something a bit worse, whether there will be a feedback at the end, or whether, you know, people don't hear something at the end. I think that is yeah. That's my question.
Yeah.
But difficult.
Well, firstly, I'm sorry that's the case that's happened. And certainly, if you wanted to sort of pass your details on, or crime reference number, can look into that, why that's happened, because it shouldn't do. So an officer investigating a crime should update their victim at least every 28 days. And then at the conclusion of the investigation, you should absolutely be told what's happened. So yeah, I can certainly look into why that hasn't happened.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's been pointed out to me that Stephen Lloyd had his hand up in a previous question. Stephen Lloyd, would you like to speak?
Sorry, just unmuting. This is going back to the point from probably about 30 minutes ago with Ben. It's two things. First of all, is quickly to support Tina, who spoke earlier about people being nicer and couples making space. Yes, it might have been ignoring people who were older in the past and current, but obviously the consequences now are different. So encouraging people being nicer is not a bad thing. We shouldn't put that one down. Ben mentioned there was a lack of neighbourhood watch cover in certain areas. Now, I attended a neighbourhood watch seminar probably about 2 months ago now, where it was raised there as well about lack of cover in areas. Is there anywhere we were encouraged at that event to try and take on more than our existing areas? So if you do have anything that's in this area that needs help and is adjacent or sort of like complementary to where, say, I am, we'd like to help out short term, or even, you know, until somebody in that area wants to step up. You know, if you've got gaps, I'm sure a lot of the existing coordinators will be glad to help. So just let us know if you have, and you know, see what we can do to help out.
Would somebody like to respond? One of the councillors, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if Gemma has any details, but I think I'm pretty sure Eugenia has. So perhaps I could pass that on to Eugenia, and she may be in touch with you then, Stephen. Yeah.
That's great, Ben. And just to say, for our Survey neighbourhood team, we have a really good team around here. They've been incredibly helpful in recent times with us, and all power to them. So, you know, a thanks to you all while you're here.
Yeah, that's very nice. Thank you. I hear I've been pointed out to me that Michael Hamilton was also waving his hand. Would Michael Hamilton like to speak? Yes. I would.
Okay, there we are. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, well, really, what I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for chairing this Zoom get-together.
Say hi, neighbour.
Sue used to be my neighbour, and I mean, you've been tremendous on it. And I just really, really want to thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michael. That would have been at the end.
I'm sure all of you will join me.
Yeah.
In thanks.
Well, we haven't finished, because I think there is another question. So,
but I'm finished, so I've got to go.
Thank you,
Rain
Michael.
is making my best to grade.
Yeah.
Okay. But come for lunch or dinner.
Like to. I think, sorry, I've said Jay, but Lindsay Roberts Warren has brought up a question about crime figures and catalytic converters. Could we have Leslie Roberts Warren first, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed on the listing for crime figures, and I have to say that I don't have a car, so I don't have a vested interest, but I was kind of puzzled and startled that the number of people who seem to have had their catalytic converters stolen from their cars. And I asked someone about it, and they said, well, it's not a kind of 1 minute job to steal it. I think you have to sort of go under the car and faff around, and so I was kind of puzzled as to why there should be a rise. I mean, presumably they're of considerable value to somebody, and I wondered if this was a particular crime that's worse at the moment, or how it is that people don't necessarily spot it happening. So maybe the local police liaison would comment on that.
Inspector Robinson?
Yeah, of course. So we are seeing a rise in this type of crime at the minute. It sort of spikes and then drifts off, possibly as suspects move around the borough. But it is something we're aware of. Theft from motor vehicle is a priority crime pretty much across the whole of the Richmond borough. And what I've got at the minute is a member of my team sort of looking at the crime patterns, and also looking in terms of what we can do in terms of prevention. The Safer Neighbourhood Boards, I think Peter's on here, isn't he, will support me, and we're looking to do some crime prevention stuff around it. There's certain kits that you can get that fix the car, which make it impossible for them to be taken. It's only applies to certain types of cars. So we're doing some work into contacting people that have those relevant cars, and hopefully getting these things. Sorry, I don't know much about cars. I'm probably being really vague here. The things fixed on them that stop them nicking the catalytic converters, as well as obviously trying to catch the people doing it.
Thank you very much. I was just very puzzled, and can see that it's not much fun for the people whose cars are.
No, not at all. I mean, one of my teams was doing some work on it, and if they take it from like a builder's van, that can mean they're out of work they can lose something like $7 grand, or on their livelihood. So it's extremely frustrating for people.
Yeah. Thank you,
Ben.
Was there some work done with the particular car manufacturers, the particular cars that seem to be prone to this kind of crime? I think they were approached and asked to make them more secure.
Yes.
Anybody know?
I think.
So,
go on, Gemma.
Oh, sorry. One of my colleagues. So the two main makes are Honda Jazz and the Toyota Prius. So one of my colleagues actually went to the Toyota garage the other day, and they are meant to be putting in places. Toyota are aware that they're easy to take on the older model cars. So on the newer models, they're putting things in place. So the catalytic converters are harder to take.
Peter, did you still want to add something?
No, I think Gemma's, it's the two Japanese models. They're after the precious metals in the converter, and as far as I'm aware, they've perfected, they can do it in about 2 minutes. But no, it's just been a huge crime locally, and hopefully, well, whilst they can fit some devices to the newer cars, it's the older cars that are the problem. But as Rebecca said, we at the Safer Neighbourhood Board, if we can help fund something amongst I happen to be the treasurer, so we will consider measures where we can maybe support and reduce crime prevention, crime reduction. Fingers crossed. Thank you.
That'd be very helpful. I think was Jay available? Because I think this might be the final question.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I have a question. We sort of live on King Street, on the High Street actually, and our front door is basically on the High Street, and on numerous occasions of times there have been beggars on the street that literally almost sits in front of our front door, which could be quite concerning. My question is, when we see that, do we straight away contact the police, or how do we go about that issue, and is it even legal for them to sort of sit in front of someone's door basically?
Okay, Gemma?
Yeah, I was going to say, always report it. Go through the 101 channels, or you can go onto the Met Police website as well and report it on there. We've actually been given new little booklets at the moment. They're like antisocial behaviour booklets. So we can issue those, and we can also prevent them from coming to the area as well. So yeah, it's always worth reporting it. I think you're going to actually live on the Riverside ward, so I'll try and get the email for the SNT mailbox, and then you can always drop them. It's always the same people that are sat out and about. So if you just email directly as well, Chloe and Pitch will be able to pop down and then issue out the correct paperwork.
Right, okay, thank you. But for sort of immediate effect, the smartest thing to do is call 101?
That's correct, yes, yeah. But it's for us, it is usually a little bit of a like a longer project, shall we say. We need to go through like the correct channels in order to like give them banning letters and to prevent them coming.
Right, okay.
Could I just check with Jay whether she's referring to professional beggars or whether she's referring to a situation of homelessness in the doorway?
Professional beggars, they're quite local.
Okay. Because
they're recognizable and they're local, so yeah.
I was going to mention in respect of homelessness that also there, if there are homeless people in doorways and things like that, do also get in touch with SPEAR, with whom the work council works very closely, because they may not know about them and they can reach out to them and try to find them accommodation and so on. But obviously professional beggars is really police matter primarily.
Yeah, I've seen professional beggars and I've seen rough sleepers as well. But yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
I think the one lesson we can take away from this evening is that we need to keep the channels of communication open. We need to keep the police informed of what we're seeing on the street, and they of course need to keep us informed of where activity is taking place. So I think there is very definitely, I mean, in that way, Jay, I mean, if you kept reporting and we all reported the things that we've seen, then we'll have a fuller picture of what's actually going on in our borough. I don't think we have any other questions unless somebody's put one up. Susan Chappell, do you want to comment, Susan, rather than in the chat bot?
As James said, this is something that Steve, particularly from our local SNT, is very aware of. And as James made it clear, there's a big difference between the homeless people and those that are professional beggars. And the SNT are very, very good at knowing the difference and taking a really sensitive approach when it's somebody who is clearly needing help. But also, we've got to remember that some of those beggars, they themselves need to have help because they may not have chosen to be there themselves. So it's really important that we bear that in mind and make sure that you do report it to the police so that they can have the help that they need, because we don't want to see anybody being taken advantage of. But I mean, I live very close to you and I can imagine it's incredibly distressing to come out and see that and have to face it every day. But do let Steve and Chloe know, because they are really, really good at helping in whatever way they need to.
I think there's just a few minutes left. Is there anything that anybody would like to comment on, or a final question before we close the session? No, I can't. One of my problems, sometimes if I haven't picked up that you'd got your hand up, it's because of course I've only got a screen with so many people. So I'm sorry if I have missed anybody. Julia, you'd like to speak?
Thank you. Yeah, just to take the opportunity, since we've got to the end of the questions, to thank everyone for a very civilised and interesting set of questions, and actually to thank you, Sue. It's quite tricky to chair a Zoom meeting with so many people especially, and you've done it very elegantly, if I may say so. So from the councillors and from the council officers, can we say a big thank you to you?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Sue.
So if there is nothing further, then I think the meeting is closed.